Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be discussing the Calvin Robinson situation with the Right Response Conference. This has made a lot of splashes, and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of moving parts here. I want to talk about the hypocrisy. I want to talk about whether it was wise to invite Calvin Robinson initially, and I want to talk about whether it's still wise to have Calvin Robinson there. So, we're going to talk a lot about this, but first I want you to know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. You can support our work over at our Patreon-like system at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. Also check out my book, Winning Not Winsome, that is linked in the description below. But the least you can do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, to the podcast if you are new. So with that said, there's a lot going on with this conference. It is a major conference that's coming up in the evangelical world. Christ is King, How to Defeat Trash World. And I've written about this topic for the video already in an article called James White, Tom Buck, Atheists and Anglo-Catholics, because there's a lot of hypocrisy going on with the outrage over Calvin Robinson. Now, if you think that Calvin Robinson's views were beyond the pale and you would have called out all sides, I'm not talking about you in this article, but I am talking about people who have not clearly defined what is acceptable in co-belligerency. And that, I think, needs to be hashed out by all parties involved. Can we, as evangelicals, align ourselves and ally ourselves with Anglo-Catholics, whatever that actually is, to fight against Trash World? Can we do that? Can we do that? And that is something that needs to be answered. And initially, I would have said yes, or with regard to Calvin Robinson. I was actually initially supportive of the decision to have Calvin Robinson speak at the Defeating Trash World conference. Because, first of all, Jeff Durbin dropped out. So there was a vacuum. And the vacuum was at the top here. It was at the headliners at the top. And Calvin Robinson has a large following. So this is good for building a broader coalition of people to defeat Trash World. And it is a conference. It's not necessarily a church service. So with that said, I didn't see anything wrong with it. However, we're going to talk about some warning signs up ahead. But some people took issue with this. Now, Calvin Robinson's been doing conferences in America for a while, I believe. I think he's at the Clear Truth Media Conference, so he's going to be doing that conference in evangelicalism. Clear Truth Media is this Big Eva Gospel Coalition want to be upstart. They're not Big Eva yet, although I would consider Joel Berry Big Eva. And they have Calvin Robinson speaking, and they announced that way sooner. Joel Webbin announced the other week that Calvin Robinson would replace Jeff Durbin at the conference. Now, that's not who I thought was going to be the pick. I thought he was going to go way more offensive. But let's talk about what's really going on here. People that were friends with Calvin Robinson just a month prior are calling this out. So a lot of the Doug Wilson world, the James White, and Eschatology Matters came out against this decision, despite the fact that they've all platformed, or not James White, but Doug Wilson and Eschatology Matters, they've all platformed Calvin Robinson. Now, Calvin Robinson is a rare theological breed, kind of a hipster in some ways. He is someone that has carved out a very narrow school of theology that has maybe 10 people believe in what he believes in entirely. I'm being hyperbolic, but it is a very small window of people that believe in his specific rendition of Anglicanism, which I don't think is very historically grounded. I just don't. I don't view Calvin Robinson as a student of history because of his comments on the United States, his comments on the Anglican Church. I don't consider him a student of history. But he is someone who's not woke. Moreover, he is also someone who is based at times, but he's also a noticer. And I think he did a podcast recently with Joel Webben about the term Judeo Christian and condemning that term, saying that that term was unhelpful. It was pretty based. This, I believe, is the real reason why they're coming after Calvin Robinson for being at this conference, because the stated reason that Calvin Robinson is very much aligned with the Roman Catholic dogma on Mary was well known. That was extremely well known. We knew about that a year ago. In fact, we nominated him for Church Hero of the Year in our year-end live stream, the Evo Awards. We nominated him for Church Hero of the Year because of his stand in the UK and stuff like that. And then these views come out, and he didn't win the award, and it was put to a vote among the patrons. And I have to think that his stance on this is why he didn't win that award. But otherwise, enough about me. We knew about this. It was well known that Calvin Robinson had these views. In fact, he's also said stuff along the lines about how much he hates Baptists and non-denominational Christians. So this much about Calvin Robinson is known. It is known. Doug Wilson platformed him anyway, and him and James White especially is pretending like we did not know this about Calvin Robinson. Yes, we did. And when Doug Wilson had him on to cause some trouble in Moscow, Idaho, no issues with that. I didn't have any issues with Doug Wilson platforming Calvin Robinson. There's a lot of issues that I've had recently with Doug Wilson. I don't need to invent some. But Calvin Robinson has a very narrow frame of theology. He wants to be Anglican, but reject Calvinism, which does not have a bright history in Anglicanism. The Book of Common Prayer, which I do have a copy of, by the way, is very much Calvinist. It is very reformed. The history of the Anglican Church has a lot of Calvinism in it, it's, especially in the United States. If you want Anglicanism, and you want to remove the Calvinism, you'll get Methodism, or you'll get ship taxes, which is a reference to the English Civil War, by the way. That was one of the causes. Calvinism and ship taxes, because the king was anti-Calvinist. So, with that said, he wants to carve out a very narrow lane. Then he wants to call Calvin a heretic, but then he wants to redefine heretic as someone who's just in error. Like how we would say, hey, Doug Wilson is in error on these things. He's saying he's a heretic, but he's still saved. So he's redefining terms, which I would think Anglo-Catholic is one of the terms that he's kind of redefining. So he's redefined a lot of terms. And in the midst of all this controversy, I have reached out to Calvin. I asked him to come on for a live stream to discuss definitions, differences, and kind of diffuse the situation, because there's a lot of back and forth going on. And I'm in the interest of making peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. Calvin did reject my invite, and he was pretty dismissive about it as well. Kind towards me, but he's like, I can't associate with you people, and maybe by my rejection of you, you'll police yourselves. It was rather rude. So at this point, I do believe my mind is made up. I'm not in favor of keeping him with the conference anymore. I'll be real. I've changed my mind on this. And it's because mostly about his immaturity on this subject of defeating Trash World and his unwillingness to be co-belligerents, because it is a two-way street. He was rightly upset that people like Doug Wilson, Eschatology Matters, they platform him, and then a month later they attack him. He's rightly upset about that. That they used his platform to increase and get more views for themselves and then attack him afterwards. He's rightly upset about that. What he's wrong about doing is willing to speak at these conferences, and then he wants to shut the door on dealing with this sector of evangelicalism for good because it's too toxic, which is a bit of an effeminate cop out, my opinion. But at the same time, so first, he does not want to be co-belligerents at all. He doesn't view us as allies, and yet he wants to speak at the conference and take our money or whatever. I have a problem with that. If he's not going to extend charity in both directions, then it might be best to part ways now. The second is, as a foreigner weighing in on American politics, foreigners are really bad at this in general. They just are terrible at American politics. The British and the Canadians, especially, they are terrible at American politics. So, with that said, he's also doing the same. How much more of this do we need, and how much more can we take of British people who don't understand American politics or even politics in general? Because let's face it, if they understood politics in the UK, they might not be doing as poorly as they're doing right now. So, I don't know. He's taken a lot of bold stances in media and in the narrow Anglican church circles that he deals with, because I don't believe he was actually in the Church of England Anglican Church. He was in a different Anglican communion, one that's actually more conservative in its theology. So he's taken a lot of stances in these areas. And these are good. This is good. But how is he going to help us defeat Trash World if, first of all, he doesn't believe in co-belligerency? Second of all, he doesn't like his own audience. We shouldn't platform people that hate us. And that's what's going on here. So, those are my thoughts on that. I have definitely changed my mind after time has passed. And I think there's wisdom in waiting to just air out your opinion, because I've tried to give Calvin the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, sometimes you just got to take no for an answer. So have a blessed day, stay based, Christ is King, and we will catch you on the next one.